to Party Chat people. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Where's the rest of it?
I thought there was gonna be more.
That
Me
was a lead
too.
in. That was a lead in to you
I-
guys. Look, you
I
already
was-
yelled at me off camera for like being super racist, so
Super.
not really. No.
I was waiting for the whole bit. I didn't
Well,
know.
why don't you go with the bit since
Bit.
since you
Party
do the
Chat
bits, okay.
peoples.
There we go.
I am joined by Stacy, Steve, and Mikey.
Maybe
And
we should just
today
start.
we will defend our family honor by
Yes.
talking about video games and things.
Maybe we should just start pre-recording nonsense intros. That
So we have like 5 takes
The
of
path
just like dumb
that we're
shit.
going down. We're just gonna go to a park and record like 70 of
Go to a park.
But it always has to
All
be
the
thematic to
intros.
like the newest games, unless you want to look at the release
That's
calendar
fine.
and
We
just
have
make shit up.
trailers to go off of. We'll be
Hey,
fine.
Okay,
hey mom, what are
okay.
these weebs doing? Now that's the perfect time to use that
Oh,
word,
man.
weebs.
So like,
In
we'll
the
go
park,
to the park, and then
like
when
They
the
will
new
be
with a
dying.
fake sword in hand.
when
Yeah.
the new Destiny expansion
Oh,
comes
that'd be
out, like
funny as
we'll
fuck.
I'll like throw ice at Mikey or something. Like,
And I'll walk around with 2 Swiss Army knives and put on a cape
That
and pretend to be a
sounds
hunter. And you throw ice
So
at me.
adorable. My God.
Oh, no,
So-
yes,
Mikey, what are we talking about today?
we are talking about. Look how easily we got off track. Okay,
derailed.
we
You're
are
welcome.
talking about the Xbox showcase and how uninteresting it is.
Oh
No,
god, it was.
I don't want to bury the lead, but I think
It's
generally
okay.
most people were sort of disappointed in what they showed.
It
but after
was
that-
weak.
Yeah,
So take the
Overall,
PlayStation
pretty
1 a
weak.
month ago or something like that, and it's downhill from there.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
After
overall.
that, Xavi wants to talk about Fantasy Strike and its move to free to play, and why he still enjoys this fighting game. Stacy is also returning to a old favorite, Overwatch, and also discussing the competition with other free to play games and the effect of dual competitive queues and rank spiral. And finally, to end off the show, I'm going to be giving some general impressions of Ghosts of Tsushima, where I just
Which
really I
everyone's
haven't.
playing?
Yeah.
For the most
Yeah.
part.
Okay. As I was saying before the podcast to everyone, one of the weird things about this game, it doesn't have playtime, so I can't really give like a general say of like how long I've been in the game, but I can say I've spent like 3 healthy nights on it, maybe like 3 hours of play, so maybe 10 hours in, I guess I could say. So I'm still in Act 1. Still trying to sort of pass that initial story mark, but I've been going around the island and checking things out.
You gotta
But
recruit your troops. You gotta recruit your
my
people.
troops. Yep. But speaking of recruiting troops, Xbox, did they recruit any new fans with this showcase?
No, because everything's
I
coming
don't
out on PC anyway.
think so. only,
Thanks, Microsoft.
only because the big seller for this whole showcase was Halo, right?
Mm,
It was the
mhm.
one thing they had going for them that was on the cusp, or it's getting close to the cusp of being released. That was going to get people to buy this console,
Mm.
because their marketing for this console has not been like the way PS4's has been, where hiding what the console looks like, this, that, and the third, and then having this whole showcase showing all these exclusive games you're going to release and people are excited for. Here, your only driving force was Halo.
Mm.
And we got an 8-minute Halo gameplay demo that looks pretty much like Halo.
Look, it's
I think it's
exactly
fair
what
to
you thought it
say-
would be. How
Yeah.
exciting is that?
Yeah.
I think it's fair
Yeah.
to say that was like the obvious biggest thing.
Yeah, at least they did lead with a winner.
I guess. I mean, it's not going to make me buy it any quicker.
That's the thing. Like, if you want to play this in terms of like wargaming it out between the 2 console people, this was not particularly amazing, because what they need is system sellers, and they didn't show anything quite like that. Like, Halo's the closest thing they've got, and it doesn't sound like they're lighting the internet on fire.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Did they even address any of the ongoing issues in the world, like coronavirus or mass
I
protests?
jumped into the
or-
showcase a little late because I was at work. So I didn't really see the intro stuff.
I saw the whole thing. I don't remember anybody mentioning anything. It was just like,
Yeah. So we're happy
here's
to take
games.
your additional money and time since you're sitting home all day,
Right.
but we're not going to talk about why that's happening.
So
Stacey,
brief.
people
Yeah.
play video games for fun. This isn't a place to be, you know.
That's why they paid off Tom Nook for 3.5 months.
Tom Nook is the one who released this virus, everyone.
So if you
Yeah.
look down the list
Oh,
of some of the stuff that they talked about in the announcement, and Halo Infinite is their exclusive. Yes. Fable, there was just an announcement of a new Fable game. So if you like Fable, maybe that's
I
the
do.
route you go.
Yeah.
Destiny 2 is going to release on every console, the new expansion. So I mean, the only thing they really gave us is the little gameplay there. Forza Motorsport. Now a few years ago, I would have said that might have made me buy the system and that game. But we've come to
Quick
a-
question. How did that footage stack up to the Gran Turismo?
So that's what I was just about to get into, right?
Oh, okay.
Is to say, in the past couple of years, Forza was the driving simulator to get, right?
Mhm.
Because of its physics, because of its driving, because of the customizability of the cars, and the whole the creator, the decal stuff to make your own liveries for the cars and everything. But now we're in a place where you have things like Gran Turismo, you have Assetto Corsa, you have Project Cars, you have iRacing, R Factor 2. All these
F1,
racing games are
your
out
favorite.
now.
Yeah, there's so
I love
many all of a
F1.
sudden, which is
There's
great.
so many more simulator-esque racing games out now that Forza isn't really going to be a console seller either.
You know, it's funny. I was
Mm.
listening to one of our older episodes when both of you guys, Mikey and Steve, were like talking about how there wasn't enough racing games. So I guess that's turned around.
It has.
Well, to me, I mean, there's a lot more simulation. Remember, I like arcade racers,
Right.
but
Mhm.
Steve is right. There's so many simulations.
Sims.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
just
still a gulf between the hardcore actually knowing how to drive
Yeah.
and Mario Kart. You know.
yeah. There's a lot where that's not being fulfilled. There's a
Forza
big
was
market for that.
my introduction to sim racing. So that's where I learned all of my sim racing and the racing techniques and how to drive a car.
Yeah, and
Well,
that was a big thing with Forza was that they actually tried to make that stuff accessible.
right. And I
Mhm.
think around the time Forza 2, Forza 3 were coming out on the 360 was when they started like laser scanning tracks and cars for as much accuracy as you could get.
Mm.
And that's where all that started to come in, and you could customize the engine mapping and all that stuff.
Mm.
And now here you are years later, and you have a whole bunch of sims that people can play that have racing wheel support, that have physics, that have driver AI, and all these things that Forza's not going to sell a console to me.
Mm.
And then you have State of Decay 3 on there, Xavi. That you like State of Decay 2.
I like both of them. Yeah,
Like it.
it's one of the only like games out there, game designs out there that really puts front and center the idea that you're playing as a community,
Right.
not a particular hero. Like people can become heroes in the community and different characters have different potentials, which is fair and realistic. Two, the big thing was introducing co-op, and a lot of people rightfully criticized that that's most of the iteration from one
Right.
to two.
Mm.
This one,
But it was the best iteration because I remember
Oh,
playing
yeah.
State of Decay 1 and just going, "Oh my God, this would be amazing!" Just to have
it
with three
needed
other
an
people.
iteration, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
It needed co-op and it needed like to just be made modern in terms of graphics and controls and
Gotcha.
stuff.
Gotcha.
But a lot of people I think were just like, oh, it's just like the first one. Which, like I said, you can do that once. You can get away with that once in my mind, right? And they did, and I'm fine with State of Decay 2. We saw a cinematic for State of Decay 3 that looks good tonally, but
Mhm.
otherwise we don't know what it necessarily means. It showed a zombie deer, which that was
Interesting.
cool because like State of Decay has various kinds of like zombies. Like it has like the bloater type, it has like the tank
Yeah.
type, and that
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I don't believe that there was any zombified animals, so that was a kind of a cool mix.
It almost makes me think they're going sort of Horizon Zero Dawn on zombies.
Maybe we'll see.
So I
We'll see what it
played-
is. But what I'm hopeful for, I'll just say like now to sort of put it on the record is like I said, you can do the iteration thing once. I think that part of what's good about the cinematic trailer is that it didn't look like State of Decay 1 or 2, you had a sole person, very survival base, who like had a camp, was approached by a wolf, like yelled physically at the wolf to like scare it off. Like it was a different vibe. So if they take lessons from the survival genre along the lines of The Long Dark, I think was the name of that game,
Yes, that's what the
um,
wolves.
kind of reminded you of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
so
think
if
for
they
me,
do
it's
that, then hopefully it'll be like a new design. I don't expect them to drop the community-based gameplay because I've seen the devs talk about it and they love that aspect of it. So I'm
Mhm.
excited to see what that is.
so
It'll
to
come
add
out on
on to
PC
that,
though.
right? And to go back to my point with Forza, there's once was a time when there were not a lot of survival game options. We're now in a place where among all the platforms, there's plenty of options. There's like the Long Dark, there's the Forest, there's the Isle, there's Raft, there's
And a good amount of those
Subnautica, there's
are
so
coming out
many.
on console.
And they have access to more than two people to survive on in a place. And I think
Mhm.
that's why the whole showcase for me was kind of
Mm.
below average, because everything is like, this is all stuff that's been done before. It just looks
Yeah.
like you're copy and pasting it to now your Xbox console.
Yeah. Also, I want to say, Steve, that I think also the things that might have wowed people, they didn't have enough, footage of, or it wasn't far along, because I think Everwild was definitely striking to look at, and it is
Yeah.
from who developed Sea of Thieves, and if you think about that and you sort of apply that framework to like a world that has color and it's more fantasy, you're like, that's interesting. Avowed from Obsidian,
Like more
taking.
bug snacks.
Yeah. Avowed looked interesting too, but also just not
Yeah.
too much of it. And then the what was the last one?
There's a Don't Nod game, which we
I
have a
they
running
showed
gag.
that already
Tell me
though,
why.
Tell me why, yeah. They showed as far as like, them showing something new, like we've already seen Tell Me Why, we
Okay.
already know like what it's about.
So I think
Yeah.
the high point for me, and it's going to go back to the Destiny 2, because I'm back on my Destiny 2 grind now,
Mm,
is showing off the Stasis gameplay, which is the new darkness power that you're going to get in the new expansion. And I
mhm.
think the most interesting thing about the Stasis gameplay is the manipulation of ice is what it looks like. And so there's a clip of a Guardian throwing a grenade, the grenade hitting the wall, and then a platform of ice coming out from the wall. In the same way that May's ice wall in Overwatch comes up out of the ground as like a blocking technique, but also this creates
Platforms.
Mm.
So now you have this whole new way to traverse spaces, which I think
Oh,
adds to
boy.
Destiny, because one of the big things about Destiny, aside from
Traversal is kind of boring, and
traversal,
It's a little
yeah,
flat.
Destiny has really good traversal
Yeah.
in its end game content,
Yeah.
gotcha.
where there are these puzzles, essentially jumping puzzles to
Mhm.
get through, and
Good
they've
old
always
jumping
done
puzzles.
that really well and made it really interesting, and also made it really challenging.
Mhm.
Now you add into this the ability to manipulate and create platforms. This,
Changes
I
things a
think,
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll change things in an interesting way.
Cool.
Mhm.
So I'm
Nice.
interested
Now,
to
the
see.
old puzzles will now be easy because you can just platform your way up.
Well,
I guess
it
it
depends.
depends.
It depends.
I
Like
guess it depends.
if there's no wall to throw the ice on, then no.
That's fair.
But yeah. But if it's like confined spaces where like, oh man, I couldn't make this jump, and you're like, all right, well, there's a wall there. Put that. Give me a nice little boost, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
there we
it'll
go.
be interesting to see if they're retrofitting old
Yeah.
worlds
Well, because
and
they're
levels.
Well, they
back
are
old content
retrofitting
too, right?
content. Yeah.
That's a
So
lot of fucking work.
When you think of the Vault of Glass, Mikey, and you think of the jumping puzzle there, right?
yeah,
You have the
yeah.
platforms that I actually heard that the platforms in there, the disappearing platforms, were based on Heatman's stage from Mega Man.
Oh
where
wow.
they
Oh.
disappear.
Wow, I just got
Yeah.
like traumatic flashbacks to that level. Fuck that level so
So
hard.
that's one of the jumping puzzles in the Vault of Glass in Destiny,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So imagine that. Now you have the stasis ability. They're going to have to balance it around that, because
Yeah.
a lot of the times what they balance around is based on what's overpowered at the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how they'll balance around it.
Well, the first few months of this are going to be great because Stasis is probably going to be overpowered, and everybody's going to be like,
It's the only thing anybody will use for the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
few months. So
yeah,
don't
I
yeah.
gotta
expect to see
say,
any other powers.
that's always disappointing to hear about. Is like, because this is actually intentional by developers a lot of the time.
Yeah.
When they release something new, they want people to play it, so they make
Yeah.
it overpowered and
Yeah.
annoying. And
Slightly
that
overpowered.
kind of
Yeah.
annoys
And then
the
they
shit
nerf
out of
it
me.
now that you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they get a better balance because also
Sure.
what they do in their studios and their testing kits is not, the entire world.
That's fair. They're
Right.
not
Yeah.
foolproof, so they'd rather overpower the character
Yeah.
out the gate, because if it's underpowered, no
Then
one
why
will
would
use it,
anybody
and
use
then
it?
and then
And
that'll be like,
I
even
will
if they
say they
buff it
are
later.
they are very good about balancing things on the
Mhm.
fly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you'll generally see a hotfix within a few days if something is way too overpowered.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's a constantly shifting meta to that game, so I can
All
see
right,
it
look
being.
forward to seeing what the new loot cave is.
Cool.
Well, it's not a
Alright.
shop,
No,
which
it's
might
not a
be in
shop.
your game. Look at
Uh,
all the loot.
look at that! Look at that expert
Oh.
transition.
Segue to fun.
Yeah. Oh, I could have gotten anyway. Yeah, so I recently got back into Fantasy Strike independently of this move to free to play. I was just like
Yes.
playing the game a bit more, getting back into it, just like an alternative to Rocket League in terms of being a regular comfortable game,
So for
you
those
know.
of us who haven't heard of it before,
Okay, I'll do my
what's
due
Yes.
the
diligence.
quick,
Yes, the quick
in a
intro.
nutshell of Fantasy Strike?
So if you think of fighting games, right?
Actually, let me back up. We were just talking about driving games, and then
Yes.
there's your professional drivers, and there's your Mario Kart, and you've got
Mhm.
this kind of gap in the middle. So fighting games
That's
have similar
exactly what I'm
problems.
about
Ah,
to.
You
That's
go
exactly what I'm
that
about
was
to
go
it.
lay
from
out for
kick
you.
punch to
Quarter circle
I think you
down,
mean.
half circle
Oh, okay.
forward,
You're talking
X X
inputs.
B B
So
Y.
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
how you have it. Okay.
So like from dive kick to
Dive
middle
kick
combat.
is
Yeah.
dive kick
Yes.
is basically a joke. That's like almost like a minimalist, like what's the most minimal fighter that you can do, and it's still a good game, but it's extremely minimal, and a lot of people play dive kick and go, this is actually manageable, I like this, maybe I can play something more complicated.
Yeah.
And the next thing you can do from dive kick is like that game that they put out that was what was it called? It was like robots and stuff. I don't remember, but they had like one button special moves. It was fairly simple.
Oh, it was the game from Seth Killian's, but that studio, I was just talking about it. The
Maybe.
studio got bought out, so it
Okay.
kind of just fell apart. Yeah.
So that game doesn't exist anymore, I don't
Nope,
believe. But
it
that
doesn't.
used to exist as like the next step forward. Except that game introduces crouching. That game introduces like cancels and counters, and like the complexity is a
Dodging,
huge
yeah.
leap, right? And then you have Street Fighter, and that's pretty fucking complicated. Then you have anime fighters, which is just like,
Oh, yeah.
forget it. So
Yeah.
like Guilty Gears and all that stuff, like where like the complexity is just genuinely unpenetrable if you don't have someone walk you through it, which
Yeah.
those games don't do a fantastic job generally of actually walking you through it. That said, I will say, people who know the FGC and those games better than me, there are improvements. There are games actually out there that are decent. They give you single player stuff and have modes that you can play that are much more simple. But anyway, Fantasy Strike is meant to be a reasonable step up from something like Dive Kick, and it's excellent at doing that. It's closest to something like Street Fighter, but
Okay.
it is a game where the execution cost is pretty much out of the picture. There are such things as scenarios where you need to know the frame matchups, you need to know like how to trade, you need to know that you need to input something on a small window, and you need to be able to do it. But like roughly speaking, it's twice as easy as like anything in the Street Fighter realm, literally, because you have input buffers that are more lenient, which means that if you don't hit it on the perfect frame, if you hit it early, for example, when you're waking up and you haven't yet recovered, it'll
Right.
still come out.
Okay.
And then it also
Yeah.
has like far longer commitments on most moves. In a lot of more complicated fighters, the way that everyone plays at a reasonable level is they throw out light punches that literally have like 3 frame startups, and if you don't like counter / block that like 3 fucking frames, then you're about to get comboed
So if you
in
don't
some
have
big ass
very
way.
good reflexes, you cannot effectively play those games.
Yeah, the
So
fastest ones in Fantasy Strike are 6 frames, like for normal
Right.
moves. Throws are 4 frames, but that's
Which-
every character has that.
6 frames for me is slightly doable. It's hard, but it's doable. So if
And
somebody
it's
was used to
also
like
a
first-person
character's
shooters
choice.
and they're playing on normal or hard mode and they're doing good with those and they want to pick up fighting games, this would be a recommendation. for them.
Sure, yeah. So like the so that's what Fantasy Strike is. It launched with 8 characters. It launched with a slew of single-player modes and, of course, online multiplayer. And it launched at a fairly budgetish kind of price. I liked it. I played it a shitload. And before this move to free to play, which I was unaware was going to happen, I was getting back into the game, still enjoying it, but it does have a matchmaking problem. There just literally wasn't enough people playing the game.
Okay.
So they've made the right move here,
Yeah.
because since then it has enough players. I get matches pretty quick.
Oh,
They
that's
also
cool.
introduced 2 new characters, and in this free-to-play move, every character is free. Now, what you get for free is that you can play any character. You get the one color of their basic costume that like their default, right?
Okay.
And you can play online against other players. And
Cross-platform.
yeah, across all platforms. You can do training, you can do like everything. It's really just about you playing online against randos. There's a core pack that you can buy that allows you to do friend matches. Only one person needs to have the core pack in order to do friend matches with their friends on the Fantasy Strike service. You get all the single player modes. Some of them are pretty cool and help teach you like how to use a character. So there's like boss rush, there's survival, there's the arcade that has like the little story beats and stuff. And you get all that for like a core price that I don't remember what it is, but I'm sure it's relatively cheap. And then now they have a rotating store of alternate colors, most of which for the basic costume I have because I bought the initial release of the game. You don't get those if you just download it free to play. Even if you buy the core pack, you don't get every variation on the basic thing, just to be clear for everyone. But they're going to have rotating store, and they're also introducing alternative intros for the characters, victory poses for the characters,
Okay.
and new costumes for the characters. So I've already like given them like $10 for a combination of things. One of the things that they have that is interesting is a subscription package that gives you some minor things. I mostly did it to like support them and to see what it was. But one of the things they have as tied to that subscription is like the master costume for the various characters, which you actually need to level that character up to a certain point by being good with like winning matches with them in order to, or just playing with them in order to unlock it. And they look pretty fucking cool. So like new costumes,
Quick question,
new stuff
Xavi.
like that.
So even though you get it, you still have to earn it in the game.
Yeah, so this is the subscription that you get gets you a few things. Oh, the most important thing that the subscription gets you is the replay theater. It's a feature where you oh yeah, I should be changing my background. It's a feature where basically all of your matches, you can save them and you can review them later. And you can also see an endless stream of all of the like random, matches of players. You can put
like
filter.
Fantasy Strike TV or something.
Exactly. So you can put a filter so that it's like at your rank, or you can just watch the high level play, or you can actually choose specific characters that you want to see, or even specific matchups that you want to see in order to try to analyze how do people play
I like
this,
the way they
how do
monetize
people
this
do
game.
that.
Yeah.
So
I really like
that's
the way they
so that
this is the
replay thing is
master
part of their
skin
subscription thing.
for Valerie. She's got Super Hipster College.
Just get out of the frame, Stacy. Just end it. I'm teasing you.
But yeah, I mean, her regular skin's perfectly fine. They all are.
And here's
but it's
here's
just
some cool
fun.
ones
Some fun
that like are that they've added. And those
I'm
are all
really
the master skins.
the wolf.
So
that's
the key thing that they did here that I think is extremely like clear from them, their messaging has been like there's a hipster one again. The clear messaging that they've had is that the Bushwick outfit is that they do not want to put characters behind a paywall. They want every character to be available to everyone, period. So whether that continues indefinitely, I'm not entirely sure. But the one thing that's worth mentioning is that the day of like releasing free to play, their servers got hit hard, and there was some problems. You had trouble connecting to the online service in order to get a ranked match and that kind of thing. The day after, it was pretty much fine, but it also has not been like I've run into a few times where it's like, oh, okay, I lost a connection here or there.
And it seems to have trouble loading your friends list sometimes.
Right, when it gets into that kind of state, when there's just a lot of people playing. So, that's something that I expect they're totally aware of and working on. They're a small team.
Hopefully they're getting a lot of support from, this model. Like, I mean, just immediately, Xavi, I was like, wow, these are actually real smart ways. Like, hey, if you just want to get online and sort of play people and figure out the game, go ahead, do it. But like, I'm invested now. Okay, I want single player. I want, color, skins, a way to get better and watch it. I do.
And it's a really
I
smart
like
way
that
to
they
do it.
are running tournaments. and the tournaments are very small, so it feels like everybody knows each other.
Mm.
And they're kind of like openly rooting for the underdog in many ways. Like, hey, European guys joined the American tournament. Good luck, man. Let's talk about Janet. She's, really good at reading other players. That's what she's good at. So we would see a pattern where her first round would be terrible, and then she would get better over the course of the game. And they're like
Cool.
really rooting her on because it's a different play style.
Yeah, the community
Yeah.
seems good. They've fostered a strong small community like from this release and this influx of new people. They've set up a good starting point for them because right there in the game you can see you can join the Discord channel. The Discord channel is pretty damn positive. It's all good stuff, people sharing. Oh, you like this character? Here's all the links that I would send you to like learn how to do that
Oh,
character. But
that's
also in the game there's excellent starter tutorial videos for every character that explain like their key things. And it's really like carefully constructed to actually teach people fighting games. It does
Yeah.
not assume that you know how to do this shit, which is just it goes a
So
long way.
I do want to point out they were actually saying to each other, you should check out this person in the tournament because they're really good at
Yeah.
playing the character you want to learn. You can literally friend them, and they're kind enough to friend you back, and then you can replay their matches to learn how they're using that character.
Yeah, so I think that they're putting good gates around things like what makes sense for a subscription, what makes sense for to be free, and in particular, if all you want to do is like test the waters, you're still adding value to the community by allowing matchmaking with various people and stuff. And I think
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes in the long run, but I'm excited to see if Fantasy Strike really gets like a second life out of this. I'll leave
I'd like it.
I'll leave the conversation on the point that we'll have another version of this conversation soon because Rocket League will be going free to play in the coming months.
Oh, I thought I did see that. I was actually going to mention it when you started the topic. I was like, isn't all that happening? I wanted to get one final question. Do you know the pedigree of the developer? Like, were they like ex-fighting
Yes.
game people?
So Serlin
Okay.
himself, this is Serlin Games. I don't know everyone on the team, but Serlin
Got you.
himself is one of the people who is like principally responsible for Super Street Fighter HD Remix back in the PlayStation 3 days.
Oh, yes. Okay, the conversation's coming back to me now. Yeah, okay, so it makes sense what they're doing. Good for them. Like if I have fallen out of fighting games and like primarily because like what she said, I just couldn't keep up anymore, like with the new metas and the new this and all of that. And it's just like, this coming in and saying democratizing, a lot of where there's just so much.
Yeah, you
Well,
get
Well,
a
you got
game
no
like
excuse,
Street
Mikey. Let's play
barriers.
some matches.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
get a
yeah,
game like
I'm
Street
definitely
Fighter,
gonna
which
do it, yeah.
has extreme character creep. There are now so many that I wouldn't even want to.
I could never
Forget
get
about
into
it.
fighting games just because the overall meta gets too complex for me.
And this game's is pretty
Behind
straightforward.
the frame counting
10 characters now.
and all that stuff
Oh,
with fighting games.
let
it's
me
just
give you one
really
last tidbit that I
overwhelming
think
for
is
me.
brilliant about this game. And this is what I mean. Like this is throughout the design. So when you say you don't like frame counting, right? In the game, when you do a hit or someone blocks it, the
Mhm.
color of like the little effect that pops up is either blue or red. Blue means that you're positive on the frame count. Red means that you're negative, and the size of it is how much. So there's like built-in feedback to this
Oh,
game
okay.
about like how safe things are, and like you don't need to frame count. You can really suss it out because it's not as complicated as everything else.
I've always just relegated to watching the fighting game tournaments and just knowing that I will never be competent at a fighting game, so I'll watch competent people play it.
Dude, we should play. We
And
should
get
play
more
together.
Yeah,
that
it sounds
way.
like they
It's free to play.
send a
We can
lot
do
of
it.
visual information that sort of negates or at least makes that easier to
Yeah.
follow.
If you download it, let me know. We'll run through it together.
And that's as opposed to the game I want to review, which does not give you a lot of information about what's going on. We were discussing that earlier.
Yeah.
And also has a bad case of character creep right now. So
Yeah.
Overwatch, still Overwatch 1, okay. Overwatch 2 has no official release date, but probably not this year.
I forgot about the
Um,
Overwatch 2 announcement.
Yeah,
I know,
I
right?
totally
Yeah.
forgot that Overwatch 2
I
was
think
Blizzard
we
announces
had
shit
a
too
lot.
early.
I
They
think we
actually
had a
scrubbed
lot
the
of things
post that
going
said
on,
it was coming
too.
this year. It just like disappeared. That Twitter
Yeah.
post is gone, right?
I
That's
totally
all they
forgot
did.
that they were doing another.
Am I wrong though? Like I
Yeah.
feel like Blizzard categorically announces things too soon.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
always do.
Oh,
You're
for
That's
right.
just
sure.
a habit of
For sure.
Blizzard because I mean
Well-
they release well-oiled games,
They
right?
do.
We cannot
They do.
deny that. Whenever they release a game, the game comes out and works really, really well
Right.
from a gameplay standpoint.
That's true.
But
But then,
the-
like,
the-
you forget it's coming.
The main reason they did it, I think, is to help explain why they're not tunneling as many resources into Overwatch 1 as they used to. You're, you know.
Okay, that makes sense.
Is that
So
a thing?
the-
Is
and
that like
that's-
a? Sorry to cut you off. Is that
Go ahead.
like a separation from Activision thing?
No, I don't think so.
They're
I
still
think
in
it's
bed.
more they're
Are they?
going to have new maps, new characters, and as best I can tell, they're wanting to save those and release them closer to the time.
I only ask because that's where I know where Destiny is going. Is now that they've separated from Activision, they're trying to make Destiny their
Right.
own again and
Yeah.
kind of remove all
Right.
the stuff that people hated from the Activision.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do feel like, for better or worse, this pandemic has more people playing Overwatch than would otherwise be the case. It slipped to like number 16 viewed on Twitch. It still has 50 million subscribers, which is not bad.
Not
and
bad at all.
It's not bad at all. 50 million players. But really, like, you're buying this game for 20 to 40 bucks, depending on whether it's on sale and you want fancy skins
Yeah.
or not. That's all purely cosmetic anyway. And for that, you can just play indefinitely this competitive mode. There really is no storyline mode. There's no single player for this game. And that's one of the things we don't know if Overwatch 2 is really going to do, maybe. But so far the story has been really in the comics and little movies that they make on the side. And it's not entirely clear how all the characters relate to all the other characters except through these little tiny tidbits.
Yeah,
It-
my
it is weird,
environmental
right?
storytelling is just Stacy telling me like who the fuck I'm playing and what their relationship is to
It's a
everyone
little
else.
weird to like play a
Since
game
so
mode
many of them are
and
related to each other, it's especially
Yeah.
weird.
like especially when you're like when you're Reaper and someone else on your team is Soldier 76 and you know the history between them,
Yeah,
but
it's a little creepy.
they're
like,
like working together.
I was
What
just
apocalypse
commenting.
happened that these people are working together?
Yeah,
Really,
I
you
was just
know?
commenting on with Stacy that like there's so many characters, and maybe one way that they could control that is literally like a team is actually like an organization, and you're limited to like those people, so that you don't have what you just described, Steve.
Right,
That would be
but
an
then
interesting
it
twist.
runs into this issue of like they all play so differently that you're limited to
Yeah.
based on which
You'd have to
you're relegated
redesign
to,
around that whole
right?
concept.
Yeah.
So
So
I don't know. It's
the-
weird. It's always been weird.
the complexity is not a thing that I love about Overwatch. I kind of like the vibe of the thing, and I've liked their efforts to keep it a relatively good environment to play in, at least for not super advanced players. I can't really
Right.
speak by the time you get into like diamond mode and competitive play. At that point, you just don't see the girls in as often, but that's not for their lack of trying. When they have Twitch streams, they tend to show a lot of female players and having a good time, being very good at it. So they're trying to support that element, and they've done a lot towards attempting to ban problematic players, getting more and more clever about how they filter out people with terrible things to say in chat.
And group names.
Right, they created a looking for group feature, and people immediately started abusing it to ask for cam girls and things like that.
I was like,
which are
didn't we have
totally
a segment on
inappropriate.
that on like what
Yeah.
you search for
So
lonely men searching
right.
for girls?
I think we did it off
Yes.
Right,
off
it was
No,
recording.
we
hilarious.
did it. We looked on
did,
camera.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And luckily they did clean that up. That's gotten a lot cleaner and a lot more functional.
Uh-huh.
And they created a ranking system so that players can kind of reward each other. This guy was a good teammate. That was a good shot caller. This person may play terrible, but they have good sportsmanship. And at least by giving each other credit in that way, you gain a reputation level.
Mhm.
And then you can choose to only play with people with a high reputation if that's what you have. And that helps to kind of remove the scrubs, frankly. So the other thing they've done that I've liked, they started it in the quick play mode. They were requiring 2 healers, 2 tanks, and 2 DPS players. It broke down what used to be a really annoying situation where players were going in all tanks and healers and nearly unkillable. And it just made the game not very fun, especially since a lot of players like playing DPS and enjoy like, it's so cool, I feel powerful, and I'm killing a bunch of people. And it was taking that enjoyment out of the game effectively. So
And it made it unwatchable as far as the professional stuff went.
Right, because so many of it is they've got shields, they've got area of effects spells, they've got, it's just Diary of Christmas Lights. It was hard to watch with all of that stuff going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So now they've moved that to the competitive mode, and now there are 2 queues. One that is role restricted, 2 healers, 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and the other one where there are no restrictions. And that's to everyone's amusement, actually reduced the queue sizes in both locations, because all the guys that want to play DPS all the time, and they don't care if everyone on every team is DPS, they can go to their own queue, and they do, and they seem happy with that.
They
I
should
don't
just
know
play Call
how,
of
but they
Duty.
are. Maybe they should play Call of Duty. But
Arguably.
meanwhile, the people who are interested in a more balanced team are going to the other queue. And they're also rewarding people for choosing tank and healer roles with, credits that you can buy
So like World of
skins and
Warcraft.
other, just pure aesthetic things with, or loot boxes. Again, it's just nothing's going to improve your gameplay, but it's just stuff to make you look pretty.
So
It
it's kind
also-
of
Everybody
more
likes to look
focused.
pretty.
It
Right.
also does though.
Right.
Like I've mentioned this with when I'm playing with Stacey, but like I'm dead serious like about this being kind of important for me, and I'm a relative newcomer to the game. Like being rewarded for picking a role like is good because then I have less overwhelming choices to make. That is
Right.
good.
And
Yeah.
it's also going to be the queue times that are the shortest, so you're kind of a double win.
Look, at the end of the
rolls
day,
are
if I
in.
play Overwatch, I'm just picking Lucio because he's the only one I can play
Oh,
with
gosh.
any relative decency.
I wish you
I have
many
a
fun
question,
beeps.
Stacy.
Yeah.
So I know they have been moving forward to more single player content. In that single player content, are they putting a focus on the roles that they want you to play in multiplayer? Because I feel like that would also be a way to like say, okay, if you want to be this type of player, or like we need this, pick this role for the
Right.
single player mode, or
Yeah.
we'll have missions of all of this type that is not popular in the multiplayer game.
It's really unclear what, if anything, might be going on with what they want to call story mode. It could even be that story mode is cooperative play where you're teamed up with other players to run missions together.
Wasn't there that Halloween event that they did that
They did
Yeah,
that.
well,
very briefly?
right. They have a thing called the archives right now where, yes, they replay scenes from the Overwatch past that have some sort of plot significance.
Professor
and would-
Junkenstein or whatever.
Professor Junkenstein was actually one of the first ones, I think.
I don't
And
think
that
that's
at least
canon.
that's not canon. That's just a fantasy story about.
But as far as
Anything with junk
the
isn't
But it is
canon.
a co-op
as far as
PvE.
PvE goes,
Exactly.
I remember that being the first one. But the only limiting factor was there were only specifically 4 characters to choose from.
Right. So you're playing against artificial intelligence, and you're playing with a team and not against anyone.
Right.
And those, I think, are actually quite fun. I would love to see some more of that within
What-
Overwatch too.
Yeah, I think that like when you're dealing with this, the multiplayer aspect of this game is never going to go away. What they hopefully are approaching this as is that they now need to teach people how to play the game. Even though they have a thriving community of people who are playing the game and all that, that's what single player ought to be. That's what even co-op PvE ought to be in this context, is like, here's a story moment that happened in universe. Here's the 4 characters who were there. You need to learn how to do this, and we need to design the level so that it teaches you
So
how
that
to
you learn
do
how
this.
to, yeah,
If they can pull
exactly.
that off, that would be like in a co-op setting, that would be both novel and critical
Yeah.
for them to have
Yeah.
like a funnel, basically.
will
Another
say-
thing I wish they
I'd
would
be
do.
interested in that game.
Yeah, another thing I wish they would do is create limited competitive modes, even just quick play, that are limited to only the first 10 characters that you see in the game, so that you're forced to learn about those characters before you're
Core
introduced to the
characters
whole
and
lot
core
of them.
mechanics.
Well,
Mhm.
even if you think about the way, like they did something that at the time was novel, if I remember, which was maps are tied to modes. A lot of games would try to do this thing where we design a map and we have to design it for every type of mode, and they were like, no, we're going to make rock solid maps knowing exactly what mode we're building for. They could go further. They could go, this scenario that you could choose to go into a queue for maybe is like these characters
Right.
and this
This
mode
is
because it's a historical
Overwatch
event.
versus Talon. So you pick a
Exactly.
side, and that determines where on the map you start, and they're
And then
designed
you
to
can
fight each
design
other.
around that and make
That's
it
cool.
so that that's something that they try to funnel new players into.
Hello,
They learn the
Blizzard.
story a little, yeah. They learn the story a little bit, and they're
Yeah.
forced into particular characters and roles so that they get some grasp on
Yeah.
that, right? That would be
Yeah, because it's probably sort of like this cognitive dissonance of like, oh, I really like the look of this character, but I like hate the way they play, or like, oh, I really wish I can do this. And it's sort of like, if you get them from the beginning of the game to be like, okay, the way they look and the way they play you can minimize that dissonance from the beginning. I feel like as they learn the game more, that wouldn't be an issue, because there's always that thing where you play these character focused games where it's like, oh, he looks so cool, and then you pick them up and you're like, oh, that's definitely not how I play these games.
There needs to be a way to in a non-competitive environment to teach people the nuance of specific characters.
Yeah.
They do have target practice, so they have like a practice range. They have AI, so you can play with an AI team versus an AI team.
Right. But I think more along the lines of something like, more along the lines of something like Hanzo's main thing and Genji, they can climb walls, right? So why not have a little map that teaches players how to effectively climb walls,
right?
Like a level, like a platform level that they can do that. Something the way that Lethamyr has those Rocket League maps with the rings, so you can fly through them. The same thing with Widowmaker and her grappling hook and getting to high places and things of that nature.
And you can set those up as like basic short single player levels that help you at least get comfortable with the mechanics of it while giving some story. Like make a Widowmaker level that's basically that level of Call of Duty when you get the sniper rifle. It's in every single one of the fucking games. And like just make it a 20 to 30 minute experience, work in her story.
Yeah, and like since she's a spy, you can surely send her out to assassinate someone or something.
Like Tracer's an overwhelming character because of the speed at which you have to play her. And you have to be knowledgeable of your surroundings, something to get players past that hurdle. Because Tracer is the mascot of the franchise. And then you jump on playing Tracer and you have like no health. The guns you have to reload almost immediately. And then you have to be able to rewind effectively and make sure that you're in a safe spot when you do it.
And not just panic rewind.
Right, and understand that she's a hit and run character. You're not going to go in there and get kills. You're going to harass people and then leave. Like those kind of things are the things people need to learn. It's not just go in and like, oh man, Reaper is so cool. I'm going to be Reaper. Reaper only has shotguns. You're not going to hit anybody from across the map with it, but they don't.
And now that we have more flying characters, you can't just use Reaper against everything.
Exactly.
It doesn't work.
So there's like nuance to characters and understanding their range engagements and their traversal ability and those things that players need to learn.
And you can do that in a fun story way where it's like you played this one character and we made you feel powerful, but then his hard counter shows up and kills you in the story and or defeats you, that kind of shit.
And then you play that one next. That would be fun.
All right, we're doing Blizzard's job for them.
We are. I do want to say there is still reason to play this game, even though there's no ETA at all for Overwatch 2. They are saying that if you own Overwatch 1, if you paid for it when Overwatch 2 comes out, you will not be paying for that. So there's
nice. Cool.
So.
Cool.
All right.
Well,
what's next is me and my Ghosts of Tsushima coverage. And I was trying to put on a background, but for some reason it's not working. Maybe it's a different file, but that's all right. So yes, Ghosts of
Xavi's thing and do the whole intro again.
No.
Yeah, I'll go bring the sword over to you.
Just pass it to him. You're in the screen right next to him.
Okay.
So Ghosts of Tsushima came out, what is it, last week now?
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a fun ride. I think I've been given it roughly around 10 hours. And just for a quick synopsis of the plot, you are the nephew of the shogun of the island of Tsushima in
I don't
Japan.
think he's a shogun. I think he's a lord.
He's
a lord. He's not, because in the beginning they talk about contacting the shogun to help.
Yes. Sorry, the lord of the island. And the Mongols have invaded Tsushima, and they establish very clearly that they do not respect the samurai code of honor. They are here to control. They are here to conquer.
So good.
They are here to kick ass and take names, as Mr. Reggie Fils-Aimé would say.
I am Lord Adachi. Bring me your best warrior.
And then he
not
just
go well for him.
No, it
that
did
was
not
that
go
was
well
a
for him.
great way to
So
set
good.
them up as an enemy.
Yeah.
And how like you have to adapt to them now.
Like I've got a hill full of 80 samurai.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to die today.
Yeah.
And this guy's just like, "Are you serious? I'm gonna let you on fire now." And then it's just like, "Do you guys surrender? No. All right, let's fight."
Yeah. So you take control of a character called Jin Sakai, and he is the nephew of the
Sakai.
Lord of the islands of Tsushima. Very early on, there's going to be very light spoilers, just to set it up. So very early on, they capture your uncle, and the first act of the game is recruiting people from the island to try and rescue him. How that happens, or if it happens, I don't know. I haven't
So
got
I have
there
a gripe about that first act, and I don't know if you got this far, and I'm sorry to cut in, but I have to get it off my chest.
yet.
So one of the first
Wow.
people you meet is the thief. I can't remember her name. She's the one that saves you. Yuna.
Is it Tomoe?
No,
No, Yuna.
So you,
Yuna.
Yuna.
Yes.
And she teaches you the assassination technique,
Yes.
right? Or you gain it from the mission with her. And then the game, you use the assassination, and then the game goes
makes
and
you
telling
feel
you
shitty about it.
why it's wrong to use the assassination.
and yet
Yes.
I did
Granted.
try. You cannot not use it. The game
Right.
will literally end just saying you've been seen. End
Right,
of
because
game.
it's
To be
one of
fair,
those
that's still
canned,
the intro. That's still the
Right.
on rails part.
but it's
No
still
choice yet.
it's a canned stealth mission, which means there are probably more to come.
I
That
don't
being said,
But hopefully I'm wrong.
I mean,
don't
it's a
What am
long
I, a
game to
ninja
go.
or a samurai?
That
Both?
being
Somehow
said,
both?
you go through that whole thing where it tells you the long cutscene about how your uncle tells you always look a man in the eye when you kill him.
Uh,
So fast forward a couple of missions, I go into it and I assassinate a guy because I'm like, oh, let me make this easy. He's right here. And then I get a brief, small flashback of the game telling me how it's bad to assassinate people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, why did you give it to me if you don't want me to do it?
I actually love this.
Well, I think Steve, that happens at any point in the game. It happens when you use your samurai sword to assassinate someone. Because
No, that's exactly what happened. Is I snuck
Okay.
up on the guy from
Yeah,
the
and he
back,
did it-
and I
yeah.
like he did an assassination, whatever the case may be, whichever animation it was. I got yelled at for it.
yes,
like, why did you
back
give this to me?
Back in time, I got yelled at.
I think this is the best part of the game. Setting up the tension between the samurai Jin and the ghost Jin, because the whole tension is like what is the cost? At what cost will he save this island?
Yeah.
And like they have this code of honor, and like that's classically like held up as being this good thing. And even in just some of the side stories, they're playing with the idea of like whether that's a good thing. I love that Yuna is the one who introduces this, because it's not, they don't poo-poo it from her perspective. It's
It's a
Jin.
survival thing.
Yeah.
It's Jin with
She
his
doesn't have
background.
samurai armor. She didn't learn how to
Exactly.
use a samurai
Right.
sword.
So
She's
when
got
you
to
see
figure something
her
out.
get that first kill, it's like almost immediately clear, like this is what she personally needs to do to survive this thing. And
Right.
Jin
Yeah.
can be as judgmental as he fucking wants, but
Yeah.
like this is what she does.
So to
But it-
compound on that, I've gotten
Yeah.
to the point where I've got when you do the standoff, I can now kill multiple enemies afterwards. So now I
Yeah.
just do the standoff because I don't want the game to yell at me again.
Aw.
And
I don't
immediately
think
get
it does.
I
all the
immediately
time.
get 3 enemies out of the way, like from the combat. So like
Yeah.
in a way, I really do like that I can just do that now and be like, I'm here, I'm taking this back, this is
Yeah.
mine, and then kill 3 people and then just go
Yeah.
on with the rest of the fight.
I'm embracing the ghost personally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I-
we're all handling it differently.
Differently.
And I'm really hoping that this does something better with the trope of, am I being a good person or a bad person, or am I just doing what I have to? Better than The Last of Us did, because they've gone down the same road of forcing your hand to do something that you may or may not agree with as a player, right? But what that means in terms of the whole story, whether your decisions make any impact or not, is very unclear.
Well,
I
I
hope
think so at least in my short time with the game, the people you're meeting, and like I like to call them like these small vignettes of these side quests, everybody is met with, are we doing what's honorable, or are we doing what's necessary? And I think that's like a theme. Like I just started the Straw Hat Ronins, which Rio, I think his name is Ryozo, and he was a
Yes.
friend of yours, and he,
I
strayed
did
from the
start that
path
one
of
too.
samurai, and then you're like talking to him, and he's just like, dude, like you're like the Lord's nephew, and like your life was charmed, and like it's not like that for everyone else, and like we went out and we did our own thing, and that's it. And he's like, well, once you save the Lord, he could like make you guys
he'll make
samurais,
everything
and
for
he'll do
you.
that. And he's just like, yeah,
Not in the real
but
world.
Right.
This
It's
is
a little
like,
bit like the college grad looking down at the
Yeah.
kid who
yeah,
basically had to quit and take care of his mom or
Because
something.
Right.
if you
It's
Yeah.
just like,
listen
hey
to
man,
the
if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like you can maintain your code of honor.
if you listen to
Yeah.
the dialogue in that moment, he's like Jin is there like what'll it take for you to help us? Name your price. And the guy's like, it's
yeah,
not about that. Like he
Yeah.
says, it's not about that. It's about showing
yeah,
my people I can lead them.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and trying to
It's
protect
sort of
them and
like
get them food.
honor is a privilege, and once you go down and see the way other people live, like Yuna doesn't have the privilege to be honorable, like it doesn't
Or
make any sense. You either,
Tomoe sounds fascinating to me. I look
yeah,
forward to
yeah,
seeing more
yeah,
of her
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Tomoe
And I
is
don't want to
the
I don't want to
Yeah,
spoil
I'm just
her.
gonna leave that there.
Yeah,
Is the
I don't want to
archer.
spoil what she
And to what
does.
extent has this society chosen to reserve honor for the few and then
Yeah.
left a lot of people unable to defend themselves? And what's
Yeah,
that do?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
is Tomoe the archer sub
Mm-hmm.
story?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
The
yeah.
tale of Sensei Ishikawa.
Ishikawa. Yes.
One thing I wanted to say is that it's just like generally I think that they are handling like the lore really nicely. I love the cutaways when they get into like sort of that sort of classic sort of black and white Japanese art to tell like these tales.
The
this
title of the
myth.
tale.
Yeah, and every time a new quest starts, you get like the Japanese characters of like this is the tale, and you get like the English subtitle at the bottom.
And I love the
It's a
size of them.
really yeah.
The
It's a
size of them is
really
perfect.
it's a really well designed game. Like the art direction
Yeah.
and the menu design, just the design of the game. You
So
just
I
like,
feel
especially
wow.
I feel like
Yeah.
if I had a college class about video games, I might literally say, play the first half hour of this and we will discuss it.
so
Yeah.
especially for me, one of the most interesting things is the guiding wind, right?
Yes.
The fact that the way they lead you to your directives is this wind that blows across the land and affects the landscape, and you see like the leaves blowing off the trees, the cherry blossom, the
And
leaves on the ground.
if you remember the flashback of Jin's father's funeral, one of the characters, I don't recall exactly who, says like your father's not gone.
I think it's your
He
uncle.
will now be the
Be the
wind that
wind,
guides you, or something
and
like
your
that.
mother is the
And
bird.
your mother will be the birds. And
Yeah.
like the ways in which I really like how they've embraced like the Japanese mythology and worldview,
Yeah.
because it's not like it's not surface level. This is like a literal interpretation of like, here's what it is to have this animistic worldview, and how these
Right.
things are literally guiding you.
Yeah.
on
Even
your
the
quests.
collectibles that you have going on, the following the foxes to the shrines,
Yeah.
following the birds to the hidden things, the haiku locations,
Yes, the
great.
haiku and the steam
hot
baths.
springs.
The hot
Yeah.
springs, yeah.
all those things that tie into Japanese culture in a lot of different ways, and they're here and they're done so well in the game that you don't feel like it's a game sometimes, right?
Yeah,
it keeps it's a good job of keeping like the UI and the points on the map, your waypoints and stuff out of it until you get close enough to be like, this is where you got to go.
Yep.
Right. And
Yeah.
I want to say too, I love this kind of different cultural version of masculinity where it's not only okay, it's necessary to heal yourself, to take a moment and calm yourself down.
Write a fucking poem.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll
Play
feel
some
better.
music, you
Play some
know?
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a scene where I think I visited a fishing village, and Jin was talking to this woman, and he was like, I think she was poo-pooing poetry, and he was just like, oh yeah, those are a great place to do haiku. And he's like, what need for that? And he's like, well, it's still poetry to enjoy. And he's just like, wow, okay. Good for you, Jin.
Yeah, for real.
She was about
And-
to shit on it, and she's like, "No, it's still poetry to enjoy." Go for it.
And like that's also a privilege for sure, but it
Yeah.
is an important perspective for you to embody. Is like, I'm a fierce warrior, but also like I can take a minute to remind myself of the stakes, to
Yeah.
reflect on what I'm fighting for, to
Mhm.
reflect on what honor means for me. Like
Yeah.
that's really important, because it's not like I'm gonna just kill everything.
Yeah.
And especially like the haikus are great at like achieving that kind of thing, but it's also like a version of stoicism that isn't like corrupted in my mind. Like it's a stoicism that you hear him talk about, and it's like, if you go into battle and you're led by your emotions, that's a risk. You're going to get yourself killed. But also through his actions, we see that you can't be numbing your emotions. You can't be divorced from your emotions,
Yeah.
because that's kind of bullshit too.
Yeah.
So you put yourself through a lot and then you take time to recover.
Yeah.
And that's a cycle that's considered normal.
I'm actually kind of interested in the discussion we'll have like when we all finish this game, because I think just what's going on and the game as well, just to think about like a very important concept that I've been sort of thinking about is like at what cost? At what cost? You're a samurai, you have honor. At what cost are you going to save your nation? Are you going to suspend that honor? Are you going to abandon it to become this way? Because if you come onto the battlefield where the terms are not equal or the terms are not agreed upon, then you're going to lose.
Yeah,
you're going to lose.
It's the first thing he says is your main enemy, Koden Khan, is like, you know what you've been doing while you've been sharpening your sword?
Yeah.
I've been learning about your culture. I know your language.
I know which villages to make them turn heel and which ones to just light on fire. Like that's terrifying.
Yeah. So, I think it would be really interesting just to see if the story engages with that philosophical discussion of at what cost do you betray yourself in order to save yourself and your people or your customs and your
can you find a way to be unexpected enough and still honorable enough to face yourself at the end of the day?
I think the anchor that I really like being set up in that intro, again, like you said, it's an intro worth studying in school, is the flashback when his uncle pries him on that and he goes, okay, those are your father's words, what does honor mean to you? And he says, protecting the people who can't protect themselves. And if that's your guiding light, all of this backstabbing stuff, it fits. It's doable.
Yeah.
Did anyone get the Heavenly Strike yet?
I did.
I'm on that quest. I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
Just
one quick thing we didn't do that we should do. They have specialized duels where you fight one-on-one, and the rules are still the same, but there definitely are more stakes, and the person is usually more aggressive, so you have to pay attention.
We didn't really break down the combat very much, and I'm just
did it,
and we don't necessarily have the time for it. We're gonna talk about this game again. We can do it later, but let me just say, let me just be on the record. I think it's great.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. I don't like there isn't a lock on, but I can manage.
Right. I do want to say one more thing because this is important. For those people who are sharing a PlayStation, especially if you're on the same account, be aware that you can save as many files as you want, but the level of difficulty is the same as the last person who was using it.
If you're on the same profile.
So if you load a save and you're at a so I ended up playing hard mode for a while, and I was like, I guess I can do hard mode because I did.
I've been doing it.
I've been doing it and didn't even realize I was doing it.
I loaded at one point and I was like,
Stacy's leveled up.
Suspiciously easy. What's happening? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what
Ghost of Tsushima has leveled up Stacy's controller.
I will say this. I'll wait till discuss it till next time. But Heavenly Strike, just artistically, is a really good. Like,
all right, I'm sufficiently teased. I'm gonna go get it.
Okay, like use it in the middle of combat and then come back. We'll discuss it again next time we talk about it because it's just it's one of my favorite things.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that takes us to the end.
To the end of the show.
Oh,
yes.
But we've talked about so many video games and things.
We have. That is it for us this week. You can check us out on our socials, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube, where you can get this show and many other shows. And we'll see you guys later at Party Chat Peoples. Forgot that most important part.
Bye.